Lee the Gunwriter Williams, how you doing? You're looking good, baby. You're looking good.
Thanks, man. It's great to be here as usual.
It's always a pleasure. You know, we have that graphic up of you, that thumbnail, and it just so happens that Lee Williams, the Gunwriter, is placed right underneath your live camera on set. So it looks pretty good, man. You're looking good. What do you know? Because I'm depending on you to carry the day, kind of like I depended on Andy yesterday.
Well, I wish I would have known. Anyway, I just did a story on California's not allowing suppressors, and you'll never guess who's turning them down now. That would be the Southern California CMA. They don't want you to have suppressors in California. The California Medical Association.
Why?
So because our doctors for gun ownership, for responsible gun ownership, which by the way is a project of the Second Amendment Foundation. I reached out to their founder, Dr. Wheeler, and Timothy Wheeler founded it. Oh gosh, it was in the mid 90s, and he went off, brother.
Well, he should, because it's called hearing protection.
Yes, and there's growing support for hearing protection around the country. I'm going to say that again. People who you never thought would be behind suppressors are behind it because it's a growing support for hearing protection. And started with CDC, a branch of the CDC, the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. And they took a pro-suppressor position, announcing that, quote, effective engineering controls to reduce hazardous gunshot noise at the source, lowering peak sound pressure levels at the shooter's ear by 17 to 26 decibels. In other words, cans or suppressors, or whatever the hell you want to call them, they're good. Now, you can get them in 42 states, of which Florida and Georgia are 1 and 2 of the 42, but you still can't get them in Hawaii, Illinois, New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Delaware, the District of Columbia, and, of course, California, which is why the California Medical Association refuses to even discuss suppressors, much less support them. And I reached out to him. I called, left emails, not a word from him. And so I went back to Dr. Wheeler, who, by the way, lives in Southern California. He lives in the LA area. And he said one of the best quotes I've ever seen in my life. He said, this is consistent with their 3-decade policy jihad against gun owners. That physician organization, a state affiliate of the AMA, the American Medical Association, has actively supported sky-high taxes, bans, and all sorts of criminal penalties for gun owners. In a word, they hate us, he said.
Their days are numbered.
Move, it's clear they refuse to help prevent an untreatable disability, noise-induced hearing loss in gun owners. And they think we should all go to prison if we dare put a muffler on our firearm here in California, he said. And that really strikes me as crazy. I mean, I'm sure I've got hearing. I know I've got hearing loss in my right ear. My left ear is considerably worse because I shoot like this. So you'd think that they would want to have suppressors on the guns because we love our guns. We're going to shoot them. I mean, suppressors have been around since 1909.
I always joke about this, Lee. But can't I use a potato as a suppressor?
Yeah, it's really good for multiple shots.
Yeah. You know, hey, look, I wonder, and I say this facetiously, but not, okay? I'm being a little sarcastic, but not. I wonder what that same organization would say about my 100-watt Marshall stack and this Gibson behind me with my dually P90 pickups on here that just scream. What would they say about that? They would probably tell me that that's bad for me, right?
Yeah.
Well, why? If there was guys, where I'm going with this is, if you know anything about a suppressor, get out of TV world, okay?
Yeah.
And I catch myself using the term silencer from time to time, too. I try to stick with suppressor because it doesn't silence anything. That's TV world we're talking about. You can still hear a gunshot on a suppressed weapon. And there are tons of different suppressors out there. There's lots of different companies. And I've reached out to some of them, and they're not interested in talking to us. So we're not going to name their names. But there's some really good ones out there. All right. And they do the job. What they do is they reduce the decibel level. By the way, that was a taste of eventually on the last Armed American Radio show, hopefully 20 years down the road from now. You don't want to miss it, ladies and gentlemen, because I'm going to name names. The fact of the matter is that they reduce a decibel level to a level that is safe for the ear. You're still going to want to wear some hearing protection. Every suppressed weapon I've ever fired, I've worn hearing protection as well. Okay.
I've shot some 22s where I have not.
Correct.
And it was outdoors.
Yes.
No problem.
Indoors, you're going to want hearing protection, whatever the case may be, but it just simply reduces that report from the gunshot that just cracks that eardrum initially. And it reduces that pressure on the eardrum to a manageable level that will not damage your hearing. And hunters who use them swear by them, etc. We saw what happened with the suppressed weapon in Idaho. Now, there's an argument to be made here on that. We'll go back to that in just a second, because it's likely that that weapon might not have been able to be heard during all of the commotion as he was being shot at. I would argue that it would probably have been better to hear the crack and loud report of that gunshot coming at him. Might have stopped him a little bit quicker. I don't know. That's a fun conversation to have in a real world environment. But these doctors will tell me, I no doubt, you need to turn that Marshall down. It's going to damage your hearing, right? Which they want me to suppress. 100%. They want me to suppress the amplification because it's very loud, and very loud amplification from that. If you remember the opening scene to Back to the Future, the first one, the original one, Marty McFly walks into Doc's house and cranks up that amplifier, rips one cord and gets blown back and everything explodes. That's kind of what this thing is like in here. I can't turn it past 4 and it goes to 11. Anybody that watched the movie, you can figure that one out on your own. Just say it's incredibly loud, and it could really damage me. It could do a lot of damage to me if I allowed it to at very high volumes. And I would assume that those doctors would say, you need to turn that down. It's going to hurt your hearing. You're not going to be able to hear. It's bad for you. But they won't support that same logic with a suppressor. Why? Well, one's a guitar and one's a gun.
Yeah. As I put it in one of the best and the longest sentences I've ever written, these deep blue states are apparently worried that hitmen, assassins, or gangsters may go to a gun store, choose a suppressor, fill out all the federal paperwork accurately, including their full name, address, and other identifiers like their date of birth, wait until the suppressor purchase is approved, return to the gun store, pick it up, and then sally forth and commit armed, albeit quieter, mayhem.
I can go out today.
That's what they think.
I could go out on Facebook Marketplace today and buy 2 more Marshall stacks for a set of 3 Marshall stacks.
30.
And I don't have to fill out any paperwork. I don't have to pay. Well, I have to pay sales tax on the items I'm buying, but I don't have to pay a federal tax, and I don't have to get permission, and I don't have to fill out paperwork. I wonder why the docs don't want me to do that. That's interesting stuff. That's the lies, ladies and gentlemen. That just proves our point. Lee Williams, for 3 more segments, don't go away. Will be GOP coalition urging DOJ to use rulemaking to adopt Jensen v. ATF ruling nationwide. Now, the Jensen v. ATF ruling, ladies and gentlemen, is the suppressor and basically the wipeout of the NFA, and they are being urged.
Right.
Yeah, this is big news, because we have until tomorrow, so we'll be able to report to you at least at the time we go to air as to whether or not the DOJ has appealed the ruling that wipes out the NFA. Here's what AWR is reporting.
They're not gonna.
I don't think they are either, and we will definitely be able to report that. I think they would have done it if they already were. I could be wrong about that. Now, there is, in some legal circles, we were talking with Adam Kraut at SAF on Sunday's Monstercast, an argument can be made for them to do that so they get a broader ruling, but it's not necessary for them to do that. It needs to be done through Congress. Here's the way this breaks down. A letter currently in the possession of Breitbart News shows Representative Andrew Clyde, Republican, a GOP coalition urging the Department of Justice to apply the Jensen v. ATF rule nationwide, broadening its application via rulemaking to include all law-abiding Americans via rulemaking. We don't generally like rulemaking, do we? We'll talk about that in just a second.
We like this.
Yeah, we like this, no doubt. And there's a reason we like this, because this is legit. and it's constitutional. On August 5, Breitbart reported that plaintiffs Jensen v. ATF secured a ruling freeing them from the NFA, National Firearms Act registration requirements, of course, for suppressors and short barrel rifles and shotguns. A couple of the silencer companies that I'm not mentioning by name, a couple of them, and some gun rights groups are free now from the burdensome registration requirements if the ruling stands. The only thing that could stop that would be the DOJ, which was given a 7-day window in which to appeal the decision. And the letter from Clyde and 46 other GOP senators and House members urges the department not to do so. The court's opinion tracks precisely the position this Congress articulated when we passed Section 70436 of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. The court correctly recognized that the NFA's registration application and reporting requirements for short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns, silencers, and any other weapons, otherwise known by the acronym AOWs, folks, have rested only on the tax-paying power, and that a tax set to zero, or on the taxing power, and that a tax set to zero can no longer support the regulatory machinery built to collect it. Instead of appealing, what they're urging the DOJ is to adopt rulemaking to adopt the various aspects of the ruling nationwide so the benefits it secured are not only applicable to customers of these manufacturers, but also and members of certain gun rights groups. The letter goes on. The DOJ should only apply the court's constitutional holding as its nationwide operating position. The court held that the challenged NFA provisions governing registration, application, and transfer of untaxed firearms are unconstitutional because they no longer rest on any valid exercise of an enumerated power. That holding does not turn on any fact particular to the named plaintiffs. It applies with equal force to every person subject to these same regulations. Therefore, the BATFE, I refer to the explosives part as expletives, should be directed to apply this ruling as its governing position to all transfers and makings involving untaxed firearms, regardless of whether the applicant is a party to this litigation, again, effective immediately. Here's why this is importantly. A number of different reasons, but the number one reason, hold that thought. The number one reason I think, and this is what I want your opinion on, is exactly what it just said at the top of that letter. And that being, why should it only apply to members of that organization? Which number, by the way, in millions, and not to everyone else?
It's not going to. It's going to apply to all law-abiding Americans, thanks to Judge James Wesley Hendricks of the Northern District of Texas. I mean, he said, I'm quoting, the challenged NFA provisions are unconstitutional. Boom, right there. Mm-hmm. Congress's choice to eliminate the transfer making taxes matter, and the defendants cannot save the NFA's regulatory scheme by referring to power that Congress never invoked. That's it. He's done. He's going to make, and now it's up to ATF to make it nationwide. Let's get rid of NFA. Okay, we're not paying any NFA money if you want to buy a suppressor. It's still a pain in the butt. NFA is a pain in the butt. It's why I can't go out to a local gun show and buy something fully automatic or a suppressor without going through the hoops. This right now, brother, could change American gun ownership. Oh my God. If this actually happens, it's going to be huge for everybody involved.
Well, I'm going to predict that it is going to happen. I do want to point out that Lee mentioned fully automatic. That's not on the table right now. Everything but that is on the table. We'll get to that at some point in time. But here's the explanation.
Yeah, but NFA covers that. Yes. NFA covers all of that.
True. But that's separate. That's not even being talked about now. When we get to that, we'll let you know, folks. But here's what the signatories explained on here, which is what I was referring to. Immediate application of the ruling nationwide is necessary to avoid the untenable alternative in the interim. And here it is, a split enforcement in which the DOJ applies these requirements to one gun owner while declining to apply them to his neighbor solely because one person happens to be a customer of blank company or a member of Gun Owners of America, for example. That's just flat out wrong, because this is a fundamental right we're talking about that applies to all of the people, not just the people who are members of blank or customers of blank, which is why I believe everything we've seen from this DOJ points that tomorrow we will report that they have not appealed this. I feel pretty confident in that. Again, I could be wrong. We'll let you know. Go ahead, Lee.
Well, let's see. They just got a new AG, right? A very pro-gun attorney general. He was just finally sworn in. Yeah, I'm not seeing DOJ do a thing on this. Thank God. And, I disagree. it will eventually cover suppressors or cover fully automatic weapons too.
Oh, I'm not
hope.
disagreeing with you. I'm just talking about the time frame that's going to occur. It's one step at a time.
Right.
It's what we've had to deal with over the years. I've said many, many times as a law-abiding American, no threat to anybody unless you're trying to murder me or break into my home. Then I'm a huge threat to you. I should be able to buy any gun I want out of a vending machine as far as I'm concerned. Okay. Now, will we ever get to that point? Maybe not in my lifetime. However, I think we will eventually get back to that point. I say back because you pretty much used to be able to do that. Lee, we're getting ready. So I guess I'm done with the other. Did you want to throw an exclamation point on our previous segments? You want to move over to USA Today?
Let's go to USA Today. I'll try not to throw up, but go ahead.
This is interesting. I couldn't help but think about you right away. Would you tell people why USA Today holds such a special place in your heart?
It's the flagship newspaper for Gannett, and I've worked for Gannett a couple of times. It was the last newspaper where I worked. And when I was there, we had, a dozen or more editors and 50, 60 reporters. Now they have one editor and one reporter at the entire paper.
Yeah, and I saw the picture.
All you need to know about Gannett.
Well, and in addition to that, ladies and gentlemen, Lee and I did a lot of work together over the years. I was down in Florida where we actually broadcasted Armed American Radio Monster Cast from the Sarasota Herald Tribune.
Loved it.
And we had a fantastic time.
Before Gannett.
That happened to be the very weekend Scalia passed away, by the way. Lee and I were actually having a drink together on a Saturday afternoon on the beach at Sarasota in preparation for the weekend when I got the call from Mr. Gottlieb that Scalia had died. And that was a very somber day. But Lee was later let go. He wrote the column, The Gun Writer, which is where he gets the moniker, The Gun Writer. And let's put that back up because I was remiss in my duties there. There we go. And as a result of that, it didn't take long for Lee, who was a regular on the program for a number of years ago, to be told he could no longer appear on this program or others. And they eventually nixed him and his column. And it was the head president, Maribel, of the USA Today that did that. And when she did that, I was absolutely thrilled because Lee could come back to the show and he's been back on the show ever since. So there's some personal history and animosity history at USA Today, which is why this was so shocking. I wanted to give you that backstory, Lee. Go ahead before I go into this.
And yeah, that's one of 1,000 anti-gun reasons. Okay, I just wanted to make that clear. Go ahead.
Yeah, and that's why when this column appeared yesterday, I was shocked. And the first person I thought about, of course, is Lee, the Gun Writer Williams. Idaho shooting proves we need more heroes, not gun laws. Opinion at USA Today by Nicole Russell. And I did a double take and a triple take on that. And I said, am I seeing this? Do my eyes deceive me here? I did one of these wide-eye deals. And was it just a guest column? No, this person is a writer for the USA Today. But I want to throw the but out. We talked about it yesterday with Andy Hoosier as well, because the person says they're pro-gun and all this, but has to throw that however, that but in the mix. But the gist of the story is we need more heroes. We don't need any more gun laws. She goes on to say that, while she's conservative, she supports, and I quote, I believe in the Second Amendment and I believe some gun laws are necessary. And I'm going to ask you the same thing I asked Andy yesterday, because I think this is interesting, because that and could be but as well. They mean one and the same here. You could read that this way. I believe in the Second Amendment, but I believe some gun laws are necessary. She phrased it as I believe in the Second Amendment and I believe some gun laws are necessary. Other than that, the whole thing was, we need more heroes. Were you shocked by that?
Yeah, not really, because every third year on a Sunday, they'll come out with something pro-gun. So it's not really that shocking. The entire organization is comprised of left-wing English majors and journalism majors, and it's incredibly anti-gun. So like I said, every 3 years they'll have one pro-gun column, but I mean, come on. Yeah. She supports your right to keep and bear, but there should be some good restrictions on that, like magazine limits and carry and name it and name it and name it and name it. That's all they do is they want guns under the tightest possible prohibitions. You know, in Florida, I could not carry a firearm into the building when Gannett purchased it. It's Florida. Okay, I've got firearms here now. It's Florida. But no, they had nothing but firearms prohibitions. It was a crazy place. I'm lucky I made it as long as I did. They got rid of me and Matt, the editor. I don't know if, you met him.
Yeah,
came down.
I did. Yeah.
We were both let go on the same day. It's a sad place. Don't buy it. They're trying to appear pro-gun in the, let's just honor this guy. Well, what he did was valorous, and everybody's honoring him. I don't care. I don't give a damn that USA Today has decided to join the flock.
Yeah, here's the thing. There's obvious reasons why they did this. First of all, you had a really good piece, by the way, in the New York Times about Jordan Salinas. The New York Times, ladies and gentlemen. You had ABC. He was on CBS this morning. He's gotten a lot of great national alphabet soup media coverage here. Why? Well, because it was
about time.
Well, it was caught on video before these alphabet soup agencies could even break the story. It was already out there on social media. So they had no choice because they had no other option. It was out there. They did not have to go, and I got to hand it to them. They did not have to go as far as they did at New York Times, and they certainly didn't have to go as far as this at USA Today. They chose to. ABC did great reporting on it. I'm being fair to them. CBS did the same thing just by virtue of the fact they had the man on. Was great reporting as far as I'm concerned with these outfits, because it's usually this is where we CBS, and they actually gave us.
And you know why they did it? They're going to use this for years. Well, look at you can't say we're anti-gun.
Right.
You can't say we're leftist. Look at the coverage we gave this nice young man.
A lot of self-aggrandizing
nonsense. We call him a hero.
A lot of self-aggrandizing nonsense going on with this, but there's even more to that, ladies and gentlemen. There really truly is. Because if you know the media, you study the media, which I have for well over 20 plus years, the anti-gun bias is so evident it's not even funny. But I did ask this question of Rob Pincus when he was on the show, Lee, and I'm going to ask you the same question. And it seems to be maybe striking a chord. Here's where I'm going with this. Because a lot of those reporters, while they're reporters and work at anti-gun establishments that are obviously pushing an agenda, those reporters are also human beings who saw what happened and saw the result. Could that and the fact that they were given a green light to report on it actually change some minds in some reporters across the country that we might be at a watershed moment where we start getting more positive coverage? And I see you grinning on radio. We've got 30 seconds, and I'm going to hold you off on that to let that grin just fester and foster over the break. When we come back, we're going to go right back to Lee with that question. Could it be a watershed moment that one or two reporters at some of these large outlets might see conference that happened to be in Tampa, Florida? So a lot of fun stuff coming up. And I will tell you this, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tease this for you right now, and you will be hearing a lot more about this in the coming couple of months. But you're going to be hearing and seeing a lot more of this mug and a lot more of Armed American Radio and a lot more other cool stuff that we'll be producing for you in the very, very, very near future. It's getting very, very real. It's very exciting, and you're going to want to pay attention. That's all I can tell you right now, lest I let the grill smoke out of the lid, and I can't do that right now. But a lot of fun stuff in the hopper. I can promise you that. So if you like watching the show, you want to see me do some other stuff, we're going to do a whole bunch of wide-ranging stuff for you, and you're going to love every bit of it. You're going to be able to watch it all over. Go to a tweet from Gun Policy, which is Firearms Policy Coalition, earlier today. And it's kind of fun because it talks about the Overton window, which is kind of cool, very abstract idea. But Firearms Policy Coalition came out with the question that I was asking you previous. It leads to that. Holy blank. A positive story from the New York Times about self-defense. Is the Overton window shifting? Now, I find that fascinating because the Overton window, guys, is a kind of an abstract idea about shifting policy and political winds and how they shift over time. And they kind of approach it as a science. Now, I'm going to break that down for you real easy. Every human being gets their information from some form of media. The Overton window, and it was named after an analyst by the name of Joseph Overton, who was an American political analyst. And he used to explain or try to explain how politicians only support certain ideas that are beneficial to them at certain times in this window before it loses popular support. Well, where do people get their information? That's called driving a narrative. That's where the Overton window is, and it's all done by media. Media shifts that window. That's my opinion. I could be wrong, but it is 100% logical to approach it in that respect. But the overall question is true, because that's just another way of asking what I asked you, Lee. So we'll frame it in that term. Is that Overton window changing because these stories are out that some people have seen the light? Are we going to see a policy shift, maybe at least for the time being, because of what happened here? Fascinating question.
Well, it is a fascinating question. And unlike a lot of other questions that you've asked me where, you know, you can go, well, Mark, it could depend on this, it could depend on that. My answer is probably 50-50 or 60-40. No, this answer is a 100% to zero. No way in hell are they ever going to change. The media, especially the print media, is going to remain extremely anti-gun. Every person I met, I've been at 4 newspapers, 4 large daily newspapers. One person was a gun owner, and he was a Republican. Every single other person I've ever met, extremely left-wing, guns are bad, we don't want them in the building, we don't want people near them. They're doing this right now because this man needs to be a hero. They'll use the coverage for years. They'll say, oh, look how we covered that shooting. We're not anti-gun. They are blatantly anti-gun. TV, what's left of newspapers, and most of the stuff online from these papers, like your USA Today website, extremely left-wing, extremely anti-gun. That's going to remain until the people in charge are no longer there.
And I don't disagree with anything that you said, but I want to go just a little bit deeper here and talk about, let's drill down to that one reporter, not the paper, not the paper's overarching agenda or the editorial board's overall agenda or narrative that they've defined and created over the years.
You have to realize that when you work at a newspaper, you don't get to write whatever you want.
Right.
You get to write what your editor tells you to write, what you come up with and get approved by your editor. So the editors are not going to, let's say there's another me. Let's say there's a young pro-gun reporter. It's not going to happen, bro. The editors are not going to allow that into the paper.
I'm going to read your answer as the Overton window came and went with this story, and that's the end of it. That window opened, the breeze came through, and then the window closed, right? That was it?
Slammed it shut.
Well, that's sad, and that's
sad.
why I wanted.
It's sad.
Yeah, it really is, because when you think about it, and I have mentioned this many times, I stand by this, folks. Think about this for just a second. Can you imagine? Because these stories happen all the time. Can you imagine if these newspapers, and we'll call them newspapers, okay, media outlets, both print, online, television, whatever you want to call it. If these outlets, the mainstream media, what we know as mainstream media, were to cover these stories the way they covered this story, because every single one of them deserves the same type of coverage. If they were to cover it that way, the perception of gun ownership in this country would be radically different. That's where that window comes into play. That political idea, that policy that shifts, only shifts based on where and how people see and read what or hear what they get. And if they were to continue that window would be held open for a very, very long time. And Americans' ideas and thoughts and perceptions of gun ownership and defensive gun use would be far, far, far better than it is now. And they know that. That's why they don't do it, because of the makeup of the boards and the editorial boards, right?
100%.
Window open, window closed.
Yeah, it's done. And I don't think a lot of them realize that he had a suppressor, because we all know only bad guys have suppressors, right?
Well, there's that too. And they were forced to answer that question. But I have to say this, I do. I have to give my hats off. We want to be fair. We've been screaming for them to write something like this for quite some time, and they did. The New York Times piece was very well done. And the ABC pieces were done. CBS did well. Honest to God, ladies and gentlemen, that you got to hand it to them on this one. It would be wonderful if they would prop that window open with a 2x4 if they have to before it slams shut. And that would be the Overton window. Fascinating conversation. It really is. Gets deep into politics and political science and psychology and everything else. Lee, where can people read you and all that fun stuff before we have to fly?
They go to armedamericannews.org, armedamericannews.org. They can go to the gunwriter.substack.com, but we hope they go to SAF.org. SAF is in Second Amendment Foundation.org.
That will do it. And we're going to see Lee at the Gun Rights Policy Conference coming up. We'll be talking about that with Lee coming up next week. We'll talk about AMCON and everything that he's going to be doing there. Lee, the Gun Writer Williams, thank you for everything you do, brother. We love you. You are a fan favorite for a reason. Everybody, that's Lee, the Gun Writer Williams. Guys, we're going to get up and do it again tomorrow because it's garbage day at the ranch. We're going to cover everything we can cram into 1 hour. Enjoy your day. Stay safe. Thanks for being here. Subscribe on YouTube and our social media. We'll see you on the radio.